coffee break today, sponsored by OVD Kinegram. A reminder also that throughout the day, we have coffee available on the 5th floor, sponsored today by Entrust Datacard. And speaking of Entrust, our next speaker is from that organization. He is John Bijani. He is product manager, and he's just so dying to get on stage here and tell you all about his good products. So John, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Which button does what? Just go forward, backward?
Yes.
That's fairly obvious. Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed their coffee. I didn't get a chance to have any yet. I'm by nature somewhat of a jittery person, and the last thing I wanted to do was have an extra boost of caffeine before coming up here. So today what we're going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about, and I hope to provide you some good information, is what we're calling the Enhanced Digital Travel Credential. What I want you to keep in mind as we go through this talk is I want you to think about your own travel experiences, perhaps the travel that brought you to the ICAO symposium this week. I came by train, so my experience was very relaxed when I came from Ottawa, but I do travel quite a lot in my position. And what I want you to think about is the types of frustrations that you've gone through, or that perhaps you've seen other travelers go through. And this could be for business travel, land, air travel, anything like that. And you know, your doctor will probably tell you never to focus on the negative, but that's what I want you to do today, because this is key to what we're about to discuss. So I think one of the best ways to start this conversation is for me to just share you a very quick anecdote about my own experiences with travel. Earlier this year, my wife and I decided to take our children on a ski trip to Vermont, which is just south of Montreal. My wife, being of a particular sort, had everything done in advance. She had booked everything. She had taken all of our passports, the children's birth certificates. I even think she opened up all the passports to the picture page before slipping it into the envelope and setting it aside. So that, you would believe, would make for a very simple, easy travel experience. And for the most part, it does. But when we got to the border crossing, which was a very small one, which we had selected because we knew it would be fairly quiet, we discovered that there were maybe 6, 7, 8 cars in front of us. But it still took nearly, I think, about a half an hour before we were through the crossing. And our own experience was very simple. We got to the crossing. You know, my wife handed me the envelope. I tore out the passports, passed them up to the border agent. We told our kids in advance, please don't say anything, be quiet, don't fight. We want to get through this quickly. We want no hassle. So they sat back in the back quiet, which they never do. Of course, the border agent swiped the passports one by one, looked at them one by one by one, looked in the car, asked us to roll down the back windows, checked to make sure the kids were our kids. And then we were through. The process probably took maybe a minute and a half to 2 minutes. But like I said, the whole experience was probably about a half an hour's wait. So why did that happen? It happened partly because not everybody's married to my wife. So not everybody is as organized as my family is. So when they get to a border, whether it's at an airport or whether it's a land crossing or even a sea crossing, the fact is many of them aren't prepared. And the process of carrying around multiple passports to represent each of your family is a bit of a cumbersome process. Again, all of you have probably had the experience of standing in an airport at a gate, trying to board, and you're staring at all the other people who unbelievably don't know how to get their passports open with their phones and dragging their coffees and their bags behind them. And a lot of that happens because we've moved into a digital age. Our travel, when we board now, we no longer, well, many of us don't board with paper boarding cards. We take our mobile phones. The problem is mobile phones, of course, shut off when you're holding them and they don't fit well with your passport. So wouldn't it be ideal if you could present one credential when you're traveling? So the reason we have the passport that we have today is it's an evolution. In the last few decades, we've gone from simple paper type of travel documents to very complex travel documents that have incredible material sciences built into them, from different weaves of fibers to inks to laser engravings and holographs, and all of that is done to thwart attempts at fraud. We try to make it as difficult as possible to remove the photograph from the main page of a passport so that we can detect fraud. And this is part of the challenge for a border agent, is that they need to physically investigate that passport, make sure that it is authentic. At the same time, about a decade ago, we introduced the EMRTD. So now we've got a chip built into the passport, which has enhanced security even further. And that's really the fundamental reason for the chip, is it provides an extra layer of security. So we need to keep the passport around. There's no reason that we should consider the passport as dead and gone. Certainly we're going to require it for many years. And going back to my story about traveling and crossing the border, imagine that instead of carrying around the passports and presenting them to the agent, imagine instead that what we did is, in advance of my trip, I took those passports and, using a government-issued or a government-sanctioned mobile credential wallet, I was able to securely derive a digital credential from the physical credential on the passport. And that includes being able to extract and verify the EMRTD data and derive something on the passport, on the mobile device. And we'll talk a little bit about what you can do once you do have that credential on. So now what would it look like? Well, as we approach the border station, perhaps there's a Bluetooth beacon sitting somewhere in the station, and it's advertising a fact saying, "You're here, you're here." You could then take your mobile device, and with a simple tap of the button, you could upload those digital credentials from your mobile device to the border agent station, so that when you finally rolled up to the agent, all of your information would be present. Not only would it be present, but because the credential is signed with a country CA, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the CSCA, but because it is signed with that CA, it is an authentic credential. It has PKI backing. There's a certificate with the biometrics bound to it, and all of that's verifiable, much as it is today with the chip on the chip on the physical passport. And similarly, all of that data has an equivalent to the SOD, so that you can detect tampering. And more importantly, when we derive that digital credential on the device, we're able to use asymmetric key cryptography to be able to generate the private key, and you hold it on the device, you store it in the secure element of the device, so that you're protecting yourself against cloning. And then, of course, you send the public key up with the biometric information, personal information, and all of that can then be bound together and then placed on the mobile device, so that you have a truly secure, high assurance credential that has been signed by a country CA. So on the one hand, we have the proven methods. We've got our physical passports, and incredible technologies that have gone into them. Every country has full control over the processes of purchasing the passports, of issuing them, and that provides a high degree of security. On the other hand, you have this. This is by far, other than a suitcase, this is by far the most ubiquitous implement you will find on a traveler anywhere. So what do? The ideal is to find some way of marrying these two together, so that you get the benefit of both worlds. You carry this as a backup, but this is your initial document. This is a companion to the passport. They both share a number of characteristics. So again, the passport has proven authenticity in it. A border agent can examine it under different types of lighting and look for the various physical security features. There's integrity that's found in the e-chip of the device of the passport. where the biometric information, the MRTD information, has all been encoded, hashed, signed again with the country signing CA, and so is verifiable. And of course, the provable rightful holder. So the person holding the passport, the biometrics match them. Similarly, you have that on this. There are some challenges, of course, to a mobile device. The country doesn't issue mobile devices. We're going to talk in just a moment about what a state can do to try and provide enhanced security verification of the device prior to putting a credential on it. But once you've got that credential on, if you've got something like a secure element or a secure enclave in the case of Apple versus Android, you're able to be assured that the credential hasn't been tampered with. The worst that can possibly happen is that an attacker somehow obtains the phone and manages to delete the credential. They certainly can't modify the biometrics. They can't modify the personal information because of the cryptographic features of certificates. Of course, the provable rightful identity, again, the biometrics are stored on this much the same way as they're stored on the physical passport, with the exception that once they are on your mobile device, there are many things that you can do with them. We're going to talk just briefly about the layered model. So again, what we need to do in advance of being able to deploy the credentials, we have to be able to trust the device. Once we can trust the device, then comes the particularly tricky part of being able to verify the identity of the individual who's holding that device, because this is meant to be a form of remote onboarding to simplify the processes, especially for states and nations where consulates or passport offices are spread over a large geographic region. You can reduce the issuance of an updated passport or an updated credential from weeks to minutes or seconds. And once you verify the identity, then you're able to put that credential on. And again, the key aspect of this credential is it's a PKI-based credential. It is signed by a country-sanctioned CA so that it is entirely verifiable. So at Entrust Datacard, we have our identity platform really is composed of three main phases as the traveler goes through the process of bringing their digital travel credential to life. So the initial phase is where we establish the initial trust. So this is where we verify the integrity of the device, where we verify the integrity of the passport as well as the rightful holder status. And then once that's done, we've been able to create the credential, then we're able to move on to the next stages, which is using the credential. So because it is a digital certificate, because it is on a mobile device, you can do things like authenticate yourself. So you prove yourself with the credential. You can use it to sign things. So you imagine that sometime in the future, you can apply for a visa online, and as part of that application procedure, you can sign that request with your digital travel credential. So it is a credential that is bound to you biometrically and through your state, and is therefore a very provable identity. And then the other advantage to moving into a more digital space is, as a state, if you decide that after the issuance of something like a visa, you want to revoke it, you can do so digitally. It's very different from putting a stamp in a passport or a visa and a stamp in a passport. Once it's in that passport and in the hands of the traveler, it's much more difficult to track it down and revoke it. And then throughout the entire process, we want to continue to maintain trust in the device. We want to be able to maintain trust in the credential and in the individual. And the way we do that is by once the credential is initially deployed to the device, again, it's not replacing your physical passport, it's a companion. So the more that you as a citizen, the more that you as a traveler go through the process of crossing borders, of signing travel documents with your mobile phone, you'll also be occasionally asked to provide extra verification through your physical passport. And the more these transactions accumulate, the better your risk score, the lower the chance of you being flagged as a potential risk when you go to travel, and so the lower the likelihood that you'll have to produce the physical passport. But it is there, of course, for the simple reason that I have had this power off on me minutes before boarding a flight. I happened to be very lucky that time that I had printed out the physical passport, the physical boarding card. But the mobile technology is improving, batteries are improving, and I see that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, reliance on the mobile device as a form of identification absolutely will increase. So what does the process look like? So from a citizen point of view, you start with this and you start with this. The onboarding process is very simple. You take a photograph of the picture page of your passport, you take a selfie, and we're able then to do an on-device verification of the selfie and the photograph from the main page to provide an initial level of security. Then we're able to read the NFC. Through NFC, we're able to read the digital data off of the e-chip. And once that's been pulled down, verified, the signatures, the country signing certificate signatures have been verified, we can move on to step 3. And step 3 is where really all of the risk assessment, all of the verification and validation happens. It's at this stage where you as a state are able to take the data and you can assess the individual against Interpol. You can check the validity or the security of the device against what we call our device reputation offering, which is a database of billions of devices that have been seen interacting across the world. You're able to see whether your device has somehow been compromised. You're able to check the security, if there's any malware on your device. And at the same time, you can then verify the personal details of the individual as they've come off of the passport. And once a state's satisfied that all of those conditions have been met, we are then able to issue that credential to the device. And in between step 3 and 4, there's a lot of magic that happens. We're able to create these key pairs on these devices, and that security then flows up into our servers, and we have a CA that takes and turns around and signs all that data. But there's also a very complex protocol that effectively puts a smart card onto your mobile phone. And that smart card, for the purposes of travel, is not necessarily as valuable as perhaps in a home setting. So for instance, you could use that credential to be able to log into a PC. You might be able to use it to log into a Mac workstation. You can sign documents with it. Essentially, it's limitless because it is a secured digital travel credential. So I'm not sure how I'm doing for time. I feel like I've sped through this, but right on time. So I do encourage you, please stop by our booths, 31 and 32. We would be happy to take you through the process of issuing you actually one of these. And once that's done, we can take you through the process of issuing a digital travel credential on your mobile device. So thank you very much, and I don't know if there's any time left for questions.
One or two, maybe?
Okay.
It's fine.
Any questions? Gord, are you there? All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attention.
Much better, much better. So thank you for inching ourselves way into the future. I think we're all going in the same direction. And to travel just a bit more into the future, we have with us now from Identti, Isabelle Poulard. She is VP, Passport and Driver License, Citizen Identity, and Public Security. So the same themes are coming back with different explanations and different products, innovations, and so on. So we're very much looking forward to your presentation.
À venir. Alors, où est le... Oui, juste. C'est bon? Non, c'est parce qu'elle était là. C'est de quel côté? Hello, everyone. So after this presentation on and this merge into the future, we